Right. Well, I hope everybody's doing well this morning. I know people on the East Coast got hammered with snow.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Let's see. All right. Are we up on YouTube?
Meet the Loom Cube Mini, our most affordable.
Somebody's got an ad playing or something.
Apparently, you got to watch an ad first. Yeah, we're good.
Hopefully everybody's connected into audio. Snow on the east. Yep.
We're good to go, guys.
Water, but we're rolling on YouTube.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey everybody, welcome to another office hours this morning. We're going to talk about your macro photos, which is fun. There's an amazing gallery of images to go through, which I think is probably going to take us a good portion of this hour. Woody, we got Woody, we got Rick, we got Darren. We don't have David Archer with us this morning. It's his wife's birthday, so happy birthday, Paula. And Woody, you have anything to put out?
Just welcome everyone. We're talking about macro photos. If you go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours, you'll see a link to the gallery that we're going to use today. So you're welcome to go and browse the images. Each photographer's name is below it, so you know who shot it. That's it. We're going to have fun. Like they said, we're going to take most of the hour. If you had questions, we'll try to get to them. There is an office hours last week, which I'll go grab the link for right now and post in the various chats. But we talked about a ton of macro stuff last week. If you have a specific macro question, it might be referenced last week, and Hudson and Rick can comment on that. But we'll post that link here in a sec. And then in 2 weeks from now, we're talking about portraiture, and Hudson and Rick can talk more about what they're going to talk about that. That'll be on the 16th, 10 a.m. Pre-register, hudsonhenry.com/office hours. That's it.
All right. Rick, do you want to add anything to that before we get rolling here?
I got nothing to add. I'm ready to go through some photos. There was the gallery this was quite amazing.
It really, really was. All right, Woody, I'm going to take the host back here and go in and share my screen. All right, so I'm just gonna, there we go. All right, so we've got some just awesome stuff. And first up, I'm just gonna run through these and we'll talk about them. First up is our good buddy Al, who has been playing around with focus stacking and seashells. Al's down in Florida. This is really cool. Nice look at this kind of Nautilus-like shell. I love the detail.
Yeah. Called Spiral. He said he took 50 images with the focus stacking and used 27 of them to blend in Helicon focus.
You see, and I think that's pretty cool. One of the things that you can overdo sometimes with the focus stacking in Helicon Focus or Photoshop or whatever stacking app you're using. I like the shallow depth of field. It just lets you really control where that falls off, having the stacked set. So I like how the focus falls off as it fades into the background there. And we have a lot of images where it's, you know, that depth of field is a major component of the photograph. I think it's easy to get too obsessed with having everything sharp in the frame sometimes. So, and we'll talk about that as we roll along here. Like, you know, this that really draws you to the eye, the fact that that's the only thing in focus, Carl. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yep.
Really nice close-up shot. Did he
this
have any
shot
notes
with
on
a
this?
D70 and a Sigma 150 millimeter macro lens?
See, there you go.
Yeah.
D70 was my first real serious digital camera. I had a little video recorder that had like a 1 megapixel still camera on it. But the D70 is what convinced me to start putting my film camera down. It was just wonderful little camera. That's a great shot.
Oh, wonderful shot.
Jack, love the color in this.
This was shot with a Z6 and the 50 millimeter.
Yeah, that 50 is a wonderful lens. I like how just the was it the stamen? Is that what those little bits there are in the center of the flower and focus? I guess I go maybe a little bit more depth of field. I don't know. What do you think, Rick, on this one?
Yeah, I would. I wish you could get a little bit closer, but it's not really a macro lens, is it?
No, it does focus really close, though.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. The softness is really quite nice. I might
That's
do a
true.
little bit of local adjustment to sort of bring out the center of the flower a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's one of the things when you shoot these types of flowers is that stuff can get lost in the color. So, but
This is
lovely
one
job.
where maybe just a short extension tube too would just bring you in that little bit closer to where you start losing more of the background, and then you can do something where you just have that tiny bit in focus, even with an f4 lens like that. Nice mushrooms here. This is Jeff Fleischer.
Yep. Taken with a Z6 using 105 millimeter macro lens. It's a stack, 10 images out of a larger number. So
right.
It's
Nice
really
stuff.
Well done. It's really, I love the composition.
Yeah, the composition is just great. It's so interesting how the foreground grasses just stand out sharp along with the mushrooms. I think that's what gives you a little clue that there's probably a focus stack going on in here. I might actually intentionally blur just a little bit, or at least go in and do a little dodging and burning to kind of this bright section of grasses over here just draws my eye a little bit.
I'm surprised I didn't hear you. I haven't heard you say, well, you'd go in there and remove those little grasses down at the bottom.
I don't know that I would. I mean,
I don't know that I would either.
Yeah, I think they're fine.
It's a really nice composition.
It's a really nice composition. I like how blurred out and subtle the background is on the right side of the frame. I think it's because of the lighting. It's just bringing out a little extra, punch and detail. I think if you just darkened that a little bit, just a little local adjustment to darken just this area right here, it would just help just a little bit, keep the eye focused where you want it. Well, this is interesting. So this is Kat McPherson.
Yeah.
Yeah. This looks like
last
what
drop.
Morning at home.
Yep. Yeah. It looks like it looks like our espresso machine, does it not?
It does. Yeah. I each have the same espresso machine in the house. It really does look like our machine. Does she have any notes on this one?
Nope. Just said trying something completely different.
That's fun.
It is. I might play a little bit with this, knowing how the portafilters drip. I might play a little bit more and really try to get that drop, just like the one coming out of the filter, just perfectly in focus. I love the background.
And I think some of it is a slow, for some reason, the shutter speed's a bit slow, potentially. It seems like, this looks like a motion blur to me.
Yeah.
Like a little bit faster shutter speed, a little higher ISO. I wouldn't even mind a little noise in it.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more of the portafilter at the top. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah.
Really cool. I love those highlights. Now, see, here's what I'm talking about, Matt. Really nice job. With just, I'm sure this is a single frame, right?
Yes. I am not hearing, no.
No.
Not Scary Insect. I really like macro and the confinement that I have of what I was able to shoot. He said he tried to pick one of the latest and also non-scary because I usually love shooting spiders. D750, Sigma 105 macro, flash in the diffuser. Yeah.
See, I like this kind of macro too. This is where I'm talking about something can get a little bit lost at times with the focus stacking.
Yep.
In this kind of 3D world, having that everything blurred except for that bug's eyes pulls me right into where I want my eye to go. I think as a photographer, you're able to use macro photography's super shallow depth of field to just pull a person's eye in. And then this is a really nice artful use of that blurred out of focus foreground and background. Just that little.
I would, if I could, I would maybe tilt up just slightly just to make a little bit less of that foreground.
Or I would crop it right here.
Yeah. But I actually wouldn't mind seeing a little bit behind the bug, to give it a little bit more of a sense of place.
However, it
but-
is moving into the frame in the right way, so you don't want to go
Yes.
too far.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want that bug's motion to be able to come into the frame and not be down at the bottom heading out. It's a fun shot. I like it a lot. This is crazy, Patrick. Talk about
Patrick's-
razor sharp.
Yeah. Patrick says he's a professional entomologist. So, this is a robber fly
Wow.
shot with a 5DS 180 millimeter macro and handheld.
Handheld.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yep. That's
Wow,
very cool. And a little bit
The
scary. It's
eyes are-
also a crop. He says it's a pretty heavy crop from the 5DS. So,
The eyes are just amazing.
yep.
Love it. Nice job with that crop. I think it's just right. Ooh, what do we have here? Rob. Underwater macro?
Christmas tree worms. Yep. Shot while diving in Curacao in 2008.
Curacao. Wow.
With a Canon XTI. Wow. Canon 105 macro and
And some lights.
and lights. Yes. A pair of Enon D200 strobes if you're taking notes. He says each of these Christmas tree worms is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch across. So that is
the tiny stuff that happens on reefs are just amazing. If anybody's into underwater photography and doesn't have a macro lens and lights, I think you can just up your underwater game with lighting tiny things on reefs. And it's, if you're getting in nice and close, you can set your lights so that they're ready to go. You just start dialing it in, and once you have your settings kind of figured out through trial and error, you're good to go. I've seen so many beautiful nudibranchs and crazy photos of small things. Wonderful stuff. Love it. Wow, that's a nice treatment on this one. I love the little dewdrops dangling off the bottom, Ron. Especially, this has a nice flow to it, and I love the shallow depth of field here.
Yeah, the background is great. The composition is just wonderful in this one, and I love the toning. I mean, it's just the black and white just really works well here.
Yeah, it's a really nice black and white tone, and I just the way the water is moving through this scene, top to bottom, it just pulls your eye. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Super cool. This is it's a great gallery of images, everyone. Everyone in this meeting should just pat yourselves on the back. I mean, Rick and Woody and Darren and David and I have been chatting on our little group chat saying, wow, the gallery is incredible.
Yeah.
Chris, fun flowers. Have we got any notes on this one?
So just taken it from his front yard with a Z6 105 macro.
Well, one thing that's great when you're shooting the small world like this is if you have an isolated ray of sunshine and the rest of the world's in shadows, you can just, you can kind of naturally create that black velvet backdrop by just preferentially exposing for what's lit. And it's so much fun, to come up with that. It's the composition on this is really nice. I might stop down just a little bit personally, get it, because I feel like
it's F11.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
F11 1/25 of a second, ISO 250.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to tripod up and maybe ratchet up the ISO a little bit to get any more depth of field. But I feel like if I just had the back petals of this flower would help just a little bit. But it's so hard when you're working in a fleeting situation like that. And if there's any wind or anything, starting to slow your shutter speed down can ruin it. It's beautiful though. I really like the composition of it.
Yeah, the flow is great.
Wow.
So this is a dandelion.
Nice job, Dave.
The D7200 Sigma macro extension tube, focus stacked, 5 or 6 images, and stacked with Francis focus. I don't think I've ever even heard that one.
No, neither have I. I might just crop this corner that's a little less structural. Somehow, you're always drawn to the thing that's different. And I never want be on the corner of my frame, but it's really cool and interesting, and you're just sucked into like, what is going on here? It's a nice job,
Yeah.
Dave.
Yep.
We need to get together and go shooting one of these days. Dave's local, and I've had fun out in the field with him, so we need to make that happen one of these days here. With hopefully we'll all be out shooting together more often soon. Wow, beautiful, David.
Yeah,
David's
this
been
is
sending me
gorgeous.
macro photos. This is gorgeous. David's been sending. He's been really having fun with macro. David's a frequent workshop attendee and good friend, and I love this, man. This is just beautiful.
And this is one of those places where, you know, the symmetry, cutting it right down the center of the frame, works just beautifully. You know, the color, the sharpness, it's just, it's like a map in some ways.
No, the texture
You
is
know.
just wonderful.
Yeah.
You know,
And actually, you know, David, one thing that I would suggest just as an experiment is play with diagonals and I mean, turn it into an actual map. You know, some of those look like cul-de-sacs, and depending on how close you can get in, you might find even more interesting compositions in there. I think this one's marvelous. I think this one's
It looks like a
marvelous,
subdivision with surrounding farmland.
yeah, yeah. But you know, this is the type of thing that you know, I'd be sitting there. We used that bulb shot that I showed last week. You know, I've got hundreds of that shots from that night. You know, just playing around with different approaches, different bits of lighting. You know, all that sort of stuff. So, but.
Well, this is really nice work. And, you know, frequently both Rick and I are compelled to say, you know, tone back on the saturation a little bit. But in this one, I love the saturated look of it. It's just crazy fun. Ooh. David, I love the composition on this. I like the toning. I feel like I want just a slight bit more sharpness. I'm not sure. Do you have any notes on this, Rick?
Z6, 60 millimeter macro, Nikon F. F16, 1 second exposure with natural sunlight. So it might be outside.
Yeah.
You know, with a little bit of blur. You know, I used to have some wonderful flowers in my backyard in the clematis vine that was growing on our back porch, and I would spend lots of time there shooting. And you know, even with a tripod, sometimes, you know, just even a little bit of wind with those, a breeze, you know, can just make things blur a bit. I mean, I love the center, that little bit that's just totally sharp in the center there is just wonderful.
And I guess as I look at it more, it is totally sharp right in here. It's super cool. F16, huh? Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. With a macro.
With macro, yeah, that's the thing. The macro, once you get super close, it just everything else blurs out.
Yeah.
Wow. Speaking of sharp, Dennis. Nice job with the
hey, here you go. Here's a Canon mirrorless R5. Way to go, Dennis.
Wow. One of our first R5 shots we're examining here. Nice and sharp.
Yeah, I love the background too. Really nice. Yeah, this is shot with the 100 millimeter macro, which I just, when I was shooting Canon, I adored that lens. It was just beautiful.
Does he have any notes?
Nope, he just says red rose, 3.2 seconds.
Wow.
You know, I love the composition. I might almost go in a little bit tighter just to get that little bit of yellow or white at the top out.
Oh yeah, I crop that out.
But it's beautifully done, and that background is just stunningly beautiful. It really is.
I might try to nuke this little bit of green color too, just here. I don't think it'd be too terribly hard to kind of clone that edge a bit. It just somehow that pulls my eye there. I think it's like a little bit of out of focus bit of the plant back behind or something. But
That the center is just gorgeous, though, Dennis.
Oh, it's
I mean,
really
it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
JD, the colors in this are so nice, so complementary. Just that hint of yellow with the purple.
This is our
Mhm.
second R5 image. My goodness.
Cool. This one, I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot more R5 images in the time ahead.
Yeah.
I see a little bit of sort of artifacts, some editing.
Yeah, this
Artifacts.
one's been focus stacked with Helicon Focus.
Okay. But there's some edginess in what should be beautiful, soft, out of focus details.
Yeah.
What lens are we working with here?
The 24 to 105 f4.
Okay.
There's
a lot of times, so maybe you edit to work to get your flower and the vine, razor sharp and contrasty, and you add clarity. If you're an OM1 user, you add dynamic contrast, you add texture, and in Lightroom, maybe you do some things in Photoshop, but you have to be really careful in doing that you're not also adding edginess, sharpening, clarity, local contrast in those beautifully rendered, soft, out of focus details in the background. And if you do, you need to go in and figure out a way to mask that out of your edit. So that's the one. This is beautiful, and I love the flow of it and the composition and the soft color. That purple is just gorgeous. There's just these little textures that pop out from,
Well, obviously it's charged. I did over sharpen that a bit, over process.
Oh yeah, it's an easy thing to do, and then the beautiful part of it is it's usually easy to go back and find where that happened in the process and just sort of eliminate it. That's just go backwards through the steps and go, oh, that's where that happened, and just mask it out in that section. Another thing, even if
underneath the flower is beautiful.
Oh, I mean, yeah, exactly. You want it to all be this kind of soft, this whole bottom left portion. It's just up in here, there's some things happening. And I think, that's one thing. If you're in ON1, you do this kind of adjustment in effects where you have that masking capability and you have the perfect masking brush. If you're doing it in Lightroom, I'd suggest maybe creating a virtual copy and boosting everything that you want edgy and sharpened and nice on one of those virtual copies and leaving the other really smoothly rendered, and then you can go into Photoshop and mask one into the other. That's another technique you can do. Jim, red light.
Yep. Shot in a workshop in the Palouse in 2019. Challenged to do something with light mounted on an old truck fender. So Sigma 105 macro.
I love the Palouse is full of so much interesting stuff to shoot, including all the crazy old machines and trucks and farm equipment, and that is fun. I like it. I like the diagonal of it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting composition.
It is. Oh, and I got a message from Jim that was sort of apologetic yesterday, saying, "Oh, I didn't notice that it was just for macro photos, so disregard mine if you wish." But it's it's a colorful scene with an interesting sky and some fall color, and so we'll throw it in there, despite we're not precluding someone just because it's not macro.
So John titled this one "Lockdown is Driving Me Nuts," and it's a 40 image focus stack with Helicon Focus. So.
Wow.
He said it was his first attempt at focus stack with the Z7 II.
That's fun. It did a nice job of it. You say what lens?
105 macro.
Okay, yeah. So using the F mount macro.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So right now, that's your best option, right, for the Z series if you want to use a macro.
We had a number of questions about that. The 105 or there are some 60s, but the 105 will work. The Z6, Z7, Z6 II, Z7 II will all autofocus that 105 2.8, and so you can run in and use the focus stacking and all the functions of the camera with it. They'll be coming out with a new 105, and I'm sure, like every other Z lens, it'll blow the F lens away. So just stay, and I'm sure there are aftermarket companies more and more building for the Z mount. So Sigma will probably come out with something soon, and Tokina and all the others. Tamron makes some nice macro lenses in the
Yeah.
past. Hopefully they'll keep it up. Whoa.
Wasp head.
That's a wasp head. It looks like a Halloween devil, doesn't it? Crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of separated from the body. It looks like something you'd mount over a very small mantelpiece.
Mhm. I feel like I'd like a different background color with this one, though. I mean, and it probably. What do you think about that, Rick? It's like somehow the yellow accents and the kind of the orangish tan.
Yeah.
There's
I'd love
something
to actually see I'd like to see the whole wasp.
Mhm.
It's interesting to me. It's just kind of surreal all by itself, which might be
Yeah.
what you were looking for, Les.
Mhm.
He shot this with a Lumix G9 and a 60mm macro, stacked 100 images in Zareen Stacker.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it looks like he used Topaz to mask out the rest of it.
Well, and that's kind of an interesting point. The Lumix Micro Four Thirds. It's interesting doing macro photography. It's easier to keep everything in focus with a smaller sensor, and that makes people say, "Wait, why?" And the reason is that because of the smaller sensor's crop, you're actually using a wider angle lens to get the same field of view, right? So if you extrapolate that all the way down to the cell phone camera, the cell phone camera is using like a 6mm lens to emulate the field of view of a 24 or 35mm lens. And so, but you still have all the optical properties of a 6mm lens, basically everything from a couple inches in front of the camera to infinities all in focus. And they only use one aperture, like 2.0 or something. It's got all the optical properties of an ultra wide angle lens. So, if you're doing macro photography, it actually can be beneficial to be using a good smaller sensored camera. The full frame, you're actually sort of fighting with that bigger frame and having to use a narrower lens. It's an interesting little side conversation. Wide angles are wonderful for full frames are wonderful for wide angle. Smaller sensors are great for big telephotos, giving you more reach, or macro photos, keeping more in focus.
Les said that he just wanted to get the mandibles. That was his goal with that shot.
You got the mandibles.
You got it, man.
This is a crazy image. Is this a single frame?
This is a single frame. It's shot with an A9 and the 100-400 with a teleconverter on it. So
nice job, Michael. It's I was going to say, if it was composited, it's a brilliant job of it, because it sure doesn't look like that B is composited.
Well, he shot it at 1/2000th of a second. So
yep. Would have to, because the wing's frozen.
Yeah.
And the B is so sharp. It's great.
Yep.
Nice moment. I might crop it just to get this little bit of, it doesn't bother me that much, but just maybe just
enough to say something about it.
Exactly. Right. That's about it. Maybe just, if you want that same composition or the same 4x5 kind of view, just pull up from the corner just a little bit till you get that out of there. Beautiful shot. Wow, what are we looking at here? This is
it says red algae. I'm looking at the spreadsheet and I'm not seeing it because I've got it sorted
by name. Yeah,
by name.
Somebody in the chat throw up who took the red algae image. It's really cool.
It's very cool. I love it.
Yeah, I really do too. It's one of my favorites. The composition is just fantastic.
This is another one where, sort of like David's image, I'd play around with diagonals and things like that to maybe create a little bit more dynamic. But it's a beautiful image. It's so nice and sharp. And I love the color.
Yeah,
I love the color.
Come back to, I'm curious how small this actually is. You know, what lens are we working with here? It's a really fascinating, just like David's leaf image, these two really draw me in. And I think sometimes when you've got interesting textured things that are on a flat plane, it's easier to explore with macro, you know, whether it's lichen on a flat rock or that leaf texture or this red algae. This one's got a little more depth of field than the leaf, but it's really well done. Nice work. Well, I'm sorry we don't have the name on it.
Well,
You got it?
I just,
You found it?
it says here, it might be Norm Barker, Red Fossil Coral, #2. Shot with a D800E, 40 millimeter
Macro.
Zeiss.
Oh.
No, not much more than that. No.
Well, it's beautiful. It's a really nice job.
It looks like would make great fabric.
Yeah, absolutely.
A great sort of batik type fabric background.
Boy, this is wonderfully soft in the background.
Prairie crocus.
Wow.
Shot with
Nice
a
job.
Sigma 180 millimeter macro.
You know, it's frequently when I see this angle on flowers and macro, I'm always like, oh, I want to see the inside. But this one has this sort of hidden gem feel to it. There's just enough of a gap here that you get that sense of, it pulls you in. You want to know more. And that's kind of what the image is trying to do. And it's sharp where it should be. It might be nice. Well, no, it's great. I wouldn't, if you started trying to get more depth of field, then you wind up with those background bokeh not as nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. Really nice job.
Yeah. It feels
really
a
nice.
tad over sharpened to me, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a touch.
Marigold.
Nice job, Robert. I love the color in this.
Yeah. D850 and the 105.
Yeah. That 105 is a nice lens.
And it's handheld, so
yeah.
Handheld and you're out shooting, it's hard to get, you know, everything sharp with a little bit of a breeze. So I like what he focused on. I
do too. I might want to make sure I put the focus on this one instead of that one. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think that when you're working with a macro handheld, you're going to have to be happy with what you get to a certain extent. Just work it and work it and work it. But
yeah,
I think that having the setups that I like to work with the pan and tilt head, that we like to work with, I should say, with the pan and tilt head and the nodal rail that slides forward and back to get the camera balanced over the fluid head or the pan and tilt head, really lends itself nicely to macro photography. If you've got that with you, you can set up quick and just slide the camera forward or backward to get that focus perfect while you're zoomed into 100%. For this kind of shot, it's so essential to have that kind of tool along with you. It'll just make your life easier and more precise. Wow, Ron. I've seen some beautiful sunflower images from Ron over the years in different workshops. And, we always have people bring in some of their favorite photos to share around and get to know each other on the first day of the workshop. And Ron's always impressed me with his sunflower photos. This is another example. Really nice, interesting choice of what to include and not to include. And I love that negative space in the background there.
There's so much about this shot that makes it different from, the 700 other ones you'll find on Flickr, 500 pics. The color is great. That, it's a little bit more true to life, and that midnight blue background. A lot of times what you'll see is either, the background is, that bright blue sky, or almost white, because you'll focus against the clouds. And I just, it's just a lovely shot, Ron. I hope you've printed this one. This one should be on a wall. Yeah,
Ron really does nice work. We've got a little bug love going from Sherry here. There's, it's tough to do macros with motion, and so there's a little bit of leg twirling and antenna twisting going on here.
Well, and what she says is this is actually an iPhone 8 shot.
Oh wow!
So she got down at the ground level. She got she said got all the fancy stuff, but this would have been gone or run over by the time I got back to my Nikon. So I again, this is another instance of, you use what you got and you do the best you can and you come up with great shots. And this is a great shot.
And as I was saying, I think if you're going to work, if you find something interesting in the macro world and you don't have your whole setup with you, your phone has that little sensor and it has amazing capabilities to capture shallow depth of field up close. To capture a lot of depth of field up close and get you macro shots that you'll be surprised what your phone can do in the macro world. It really is impressive. This is great. Best camera is the one that you have with you.
Yes.
So Tobey's got this. We got any notes on this one?
Yeah. So Cactus Larry says handheld. He said I have a hand tremor, so shot a 1/500th of a second. Z7 with the 24 to 70 at 70 millimeters, and it's.
Oh wait, it's Z7.
Yep.
Wow, Tobey, you went Sony to Nikon. When she was Mount Rainier with me, she had an A7R4. It was the first time I messed around with the A7R4.
It's
beautiful shot.
It's a lovely shot. I think the vignette's a little heavy down in the bottom, especially. I'd really love to see the whatever they are, the stamen of the pistils down there. I would love to see them, much more prominent than they are. But the background is wonderful. The background is just gorgeous.
Nice flow too. I love this too. There's something just sort of wonderful about how that's just the right softness.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, interesting.
I love this one.
Really cool. Yeah, I do too. And this is again, if you did too much focus stacking with this one, it would get lost in all the details in the background. This is where you can use that macro shallow depth of field to your advantage.
Yeah. So this was shot with the Z6 and an Irix 150 millimeter macro.
Interesting.
It's lovely. All the color, the way the points are reinforced by the other points underneath. I'd love it a little bit off center. Just sort of smack dab in the middle is kind of hard for me. But that's a nitpicky point, I think.
And it's who knows what you're dealing with from a positional standpoint. The interesting thing about this with the background is that you have these interesting semi-prominent things happening in all four corners, but all of them different. And these scenes are often quite tricky to get, not some huge distracting element or a lack of any elements in some angle. It's very, very cool. I agree. I'd love to see it a little off center too, but and maybe preferentially like shifting just a little to the left so that you get a little more of this out of focus one.
But all that said, it's a gorgeous image, and
and so interesting.
Yes,
it's got an alien
just wonderful.
Look to it. Yeah. The small world. Fred, there's so much sharp in this.
Alstroemeria. So this is a focus stacked 33 images in Helicon focus shot with the Z6 and the 105.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me that not everything is sharp. You've got, the far background is just a little out, but we can tell it just keeps going and these leaves in here. But what I really love is how you found these two that are sort of mirroring each other into different directions. And it's lovely and nice job with the focus stacking. Cool stuff. Way to fill the frame. Nice stuff, Fred. Whoa.
Jim's, launched needle, he calls it.
Oh, sorry. Whoops. My bad. I hit the button there. Yeah. So Jim, launch needle.
D800 with the 105 macro. Yeah.
It's like the Death Star getting ready to launch a blade of grass. Wow, that's so read me the description one more time on this guy.
There's no I mean, he says it's a D800 with the 105 macro shot on a tripod.
Interesting. It's interesting the plane of focus in this, you know, it goes from the tree through the. Yeah, it's an interesting shot. A lot going on in it. It's tough to distill, you know, where it definitely does feel like this blade of grass is launching out of the knot hole. It's fun.
Yeah.
Wow, fun arrangement, Keith. The background's interesting.
I love this one. This is A7R, the original A7R with a Olympus macro.
I think my favorite about it is the eaten portions of this orange leaf with the other flowing through it.
Well, he says, so this is actually a studio composition. He says he collects autumn leaves that have fallen to the ground and brings them home to arrange and compositions in a studio. Made from one setup and shot as a focus stack. And it's interesting because there's the symmetry in this, you know, it cuts right down the middle. But the light is gorgeous.
The light's amazing.
The light is just gorgeous, and the color, the muted colors are wonderful. This when I saw this, I'm like, I gotta go do this next fall. You know.
Well, it has me thinking too, you know, sitting here in the studio, what could I do in this very table with some lighting? It's just, the lighting is wonderful, Keith. And I think the symmetry, you know, it is straight down the middle, almost like, you know, and that works here in the same way that, you know, a cityscape reflection on water being cut right down the middle, or a mountain reflecting in the water cutting straight through the middle. But you've got this tension with, you know,
right. Well, and the other thing is that this is a project image, right? This is, you know, I could see, you know, an exhibit in a gallery of 20 of these, you know, printed large, and that would give you a much, it would be a much grander thing looking at all of those images. Agreed. You know. I think it's great work, Keith. I loved it.
Yep, exactly. Well, more bees going after a thistle. Do we have any notes on this one?
Bumblebee duo on a thistle. He said shot with the Tamron 7200, which does not excel at close focusing. There was a bit of a breeze, so bumped up the ISO a bit, and shot at 320 to the section freeze motion.
Well, there you go. It's always dealing with challenges. Wind and close focusing are a definite challenge.
That's nice, though. It's pretty sharp. I mean, it's sharp where it needs to be.
It is, yeah.
You know, this is one of those ones where I've done a lot of shots like this, and the best ones are the ones if you can get the bee's head in the, you know, like people. You know,
but again, you know, he's trying to use a fast shutter speed to stop the motion, and it's like it's such a complex bunch of variables working there. This one is nice and sharp. I totally agree with Rick. It'd be great to see the bee's face, but stuff.
Well, this is one where I, you know, kind of if this type of work appeals to you, keep working it. You know,
absolutely.
You'll find those shots, and you'll learn how to get the best out of that lens in this type of situation. So.
And you'll also look for those days where there's just not as much wind too. You know, it's like there's certain waterfalls that I want to shoot in deep forest, and every time I get there, there's wind, and I'm wanting to blur the water, and it's so complex to try to blend the two with a fast enough shot to freeze the trees blowing around. And you know, the things that we deal with as photographers, there's some things you just can't fix with technology. You just have to use your brain. So good stuff. This one's nice, Tom. Yeah. Miss being out in the field with Tom. This is I love the water droplets here.
And I love the contrast of the background, which is moving in a different direction than the slope of the stock.
And what we're talking about with soft, beautifully rendered out of focus details, here it is. It's just gorgeous backdrop there. I love the texture of it and just how sharp those little beads of dew are. It's great.
Yep, and that was shot with the 100 millimeter Canon, which is, as I already said, is a wonderful macro lens. And if you're a Canon shooter.
I wonder if I should at some point set up and try to extension tube the 105 1.4 Nikon and see what that would do. It makes me think. Whoa.
Wicked wasp.
Stacking. Whoa, Alan. Holy cow.
So
scary.
It is scary. So this is a Z6 shot with the Laowa 25 millimeter 2.8 ultra macro 2.5x to 5x shot at the 5x setting.
Focus stacked?
Yep, taken using stack shot and continuous lighting. 209 images stacked and processed in Helicon focus. And I will be thinking of this at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. I guarantee it.
I am not showing it to Pike and Pepper. I would have a 3.5 and a nearly 5-year-old in bed with me the rest of the night. That's crazy. Yeah. But it is interesting. So Laowa 2.5 times that. I'm gonna have to test that lens out. That's interesting. So there you go. Yeah. As I said, lots of aftermarket stuff coming. That might be an option for you, Z6 and Z7.
Who shot that one? Who is the photographer?
This is Alan Lyle.
Alan, good job, Alan.
Yeah, really nice job.
Yeah.
Darren, this is fun. My kids are so into the Legos right now, but here we are in the pits.
Is that Playmobil, Darren, or is that Lego?
They're Lego.
Okay.
Lego. Yeah. Super cool, man. Well, you got to send me a link for this kit, Darren. my kids would love it. Kids would love it.
For those of you who don't know, I forgot to shout out Darren when we started. Darren helps moderate YouTube and is also a official good buddy.
Yeah, he's totally official good buddy, and loves to be around the racetrack and auto sport. So as well as soccer, and is good at both, shooting both.
And basketball.
So it's fun. And there we go. Whoa, more wasps, Randy. Interesting.
This is
there's
crazy.
A lot going on here. The more you look at it,
there is a lot going on.
My only critique, I mean, just looking at it quick, is this one little bit of yellow here. Just nuke that. That'd be so easy. Just
that's a
clone it out.
It's a content aware field. Yellow wasp D610. Wow.
Yeah. And what lens?
The Nikon 24 to 85 with a 24 millimeter extension tube.
There you go. Extension tubes can work. Really interesting. You know, the ants in this scene.
Yes.
It's crazy. What a cool moment.
Yep.
This is just, a Bug's Life stuff right here.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get more of that.
Ron.
This is a 135 millimeter macro.
Now, again, this is one of those, this is beautiful. I love the composition of this and how it just fills the frame and the moment, and just, it's beautiful. I think that in bringing out the details in the bug and the bee, that editing is creating little halos and what should be kind of soft edges, and also enhancing noise in the background a little bit. So you just want to make sure you're really targeted with some of those heavy contrast and sharpening adjustments.
If you look at the petals right above the antenna, you can see that halo, and you really don't want that, because your eye sees that, even if you don't recognize it right off the bat. So.
And it'll be far easier. You won't have this noise problem too. It's accentuating that. Interesting, Dave.
This is a magnolia bud in snow, shot with the Canon with the 70 to 300, 1/50th of a second.
A little early. The magnolia is a little early, maybe.
Yeah. I love the background. It doesn't feel super, super sharp to me.
Yeah, I think the sharpness needs to be. So wait, what was the camera one more time? Sorry.
It's a EOS R with a 70 to 300 millimeter lens on it. And
So working with these,
shot at a 50th of a second. So,
dial into your live view and zoom into 100% and manually focus that. If you're, this is where the tripod, just doing macro without a tripod is super difficult, and you have to rely on autofocus. And if anything's moving, including you or the wind, then it all gets so complicated. But getting on a tripod really, really helps you out, and just zooming in. If you're in a DSLR, use that live view, flip the mirror up, go into live view, zoom into 100%, manually focus it. If you're like me and you need reading glasses for close-up stuff, just look in really. If you're using mirrorless, zoom in through the viewfinder, diopter adjusted, and fine tune it to that.
And it's also, the other thing you got to be careful about here is shutter speed. These are the types of things when you're shooting this stuff, as we've talked about, even a slight breeze can cause some movement. So the faster you can go with the shutter speed, the better off you'll be. Yeah.
Whoa. Grasshopper. This is
Humberto. It says my territory, shot with a D800 and the Nikon 105.
And this is a creative edit, sort of a purposeful creative edit. I'd love for the antenna to be sharp of the grasshopper, but it works. It's fun. It's playful.
Yeah,
it works. Cool.
I'd back off a little bit on the texture and in the flower area, just to to not accentuate that so much. I like the background. That's a decent. A decent attempt.
Yeah, maybe painting the texture out of the flowers. That's a good call. Interesting. This is Steve.
Yeah, it's titled "Years in the Making." He says this is the top of a post used for guardrails, which I would not have known.
That is super cool, Steve. And this is where sometimes the macro photography can just give you a whole new appreciation of the everyday stuff around us. This is I just love the way the focus falls off in this, and the blend to that background. I remember Art Wolf had a photo that was just this surreal abstract thing. I looked at it and it's all these colors and textures, and it fell off to this beautiful blurred bunch of color and texture. And then what it wound up being was a macro photo of the bubblegum wall at Pike Place Market. Like, he just got up close to all that chewed multicolored bubblegum and took this beautiful abstract of it. Fun stuff. Nice flow to this one, Terry. Really nice.
Yep.
In our last project.
Handheld. And this is one where, it's like the softness in this works really well. Z6 and the 105 macro. So.
I like the structure of what you've chosen as the background here, Terry. This kind of balance between the bottom left and the bottom right, and then this V of leaves coming up. And then setting these little blooms where they're all within that leaf. Nobody crosses the line. It's a really nice job with the composition on this one. Really nice. Whoa, holy cow. Hansel, this is nuts.
So, shot during a visit to the Selby Botanical Gardens in Sarasota, Florida. So while looking for honeybees to photograph, this beautiful green orchid bee just showed up. 850, and this is the first 60 millimeter Nikon macro I've seen today.
Wow.
The speed light and the diffuser.
Wow, crazy. Really cool.
Yeah, really well done.
This is Tony. It's got it's a Buddha, I'm sure, with the Buddha's hand on the knee. Maybe.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, Tony said that he was inspired by the last office hours and went out and purchased the Sigma 105 macro to go with his Sony A7R4.
Fun.
So, and he said he's just having fun with it. So.
Yeah, I would maybe work a little more depth of field in here just to get a little bit more of the hand and the knee, but it's fun, beautiful. I like the choice of the detail there.
Bill.
All right, Bill. Wow, this is like a praying mantis upside down through the foliage here. Bill's got the benefit of being in Hawaii for all these colors and light, while the rest of us are in winter.
And so he's using this Sony 90mm macro, which I heartily recommend if you're a Sony shooter. It's a wonderful lens, a really wonderful lens.
Fun stuff. Cool stuff, Bill. William, this one we've
seen this one, yeah, in the On1 critiques,
and it's super cool.
Yeah, so this is it's called Lime Fizz, and he took the lead from a Brian Peterson video, positioning it inside of lime alongside a square clean glass using clothespins to secure it. Placed a sheet of red craft paper behind the glass and then filled the glass with San Pellegrino and used his Nikon 105 macro on a D800.
Beautiful. Really nice job. We loved it in the On1 critique too. Wow. Amy. This is a butterfly detail, an insane macro. You do such fun macro stuff. How interesting is that? Wow.
Focus stack, ultra macro image of a portion of that blue morpho butterfly. When we've shown that image, that's such a beautiful image.
It gives you an idea.
Think of all of them. That's my favorite.
It gives you an idea of why Rick and I say that we'd love to see Amy's butterfly images blown up 20 feet by 20 feet and be able to walk around and hit him with a ladder. Really nice and sharp, this one, Anuj. This is fun. I might, go in and work on a little bit of the spider web stuff. Wouldn't be too hard. I mean, it's time consuming, but it wouldn't be too hard to get rid of a little bit of that. But nice.
I don't know that I would do that. It actually, to me, the tension works for that. So that one's shot with a Nikon 500mm lens. So,
whoa.
Yeah.
Any focus? Any?
Yep. Just says 1/800th of a second handheld.
Might be the PF. You can get relatively close.
No, well, it says the 500mm 5.6. Is that it?
That's the PF. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. This one has ice crystals. Arnie, this is I'd love to see just a little more like the tip of this in focus. I don't know. It's really nice. I think that the background is just lovely. And the lines of it flowing through. This might be one to think about focus stacking just to get the ice crystals and the stick all in focus. That would be really spellbinding, I think, if you had that blurred background.
Yeah, the one on the left that goes all the way up would be really nice to have that entirely in focus.
And that's where focus
and he's got room to do it.
Yep. Wow, beautiful bug, Enrico. We got any notes on this beetle? I love this one.
Shot with the Sony A6000 and the 16 to 50 kit lens.
Wow.
So,
nice job.
It just goes to show, I mean, you can make great images with pretty much anything.
These days, our tools are getting so good. It's really just limited by your imagination and creativity and experimentation. This is the composition on this is wonderful. It's not so sharp and the light's lovely, and I like the soft edit. We got this pine cone by John. I'd like to see it just a little sharper.
Yeah,
I like all the seeds dropping out of it. I just there's not quite enough sharp in it. I think the composition's fine. The background's a nice neutral tone. The seeds are cool. Just work with that sharpness. This might be a fun one to focus stack, actually. Reed, another studio kind of creation. Have you got any notes on this one?
Actually, I don't. Let me just double check.
Reed Norman.
This is one of the ones that came in, I think, a little bit late, and for some reason I didn't get the data on it. Oh, wait, actually I do. Feather Mandala, Z7 with the Zeiss 50 millimeter f2 macro on a copy stand. Shot on a light pad.
Nice.
They
The lighting is really nice.
a bunch of Photoshop work with it to kind of make it work. So.
Well, it's a fun project and some good work. The lighting and the focus is great.
Yeah, this is a time when you really want to, you have stuff to play around. So
yeah,
yeah,
a lot of us are stuck indoors. You might as well be messing around.
Yep. And
Gary,
John said that. Oh, one last thing on John. John said that was his very first attempt at macro on the Pinecone one.
On the Pinecone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you just keep
stacked in Photoshop.
Dialing in that focus.
Yeah. So.
And then
I think
Gary,
this is our last image from our good friend Gary. He says shot the Z6 70 millimeters at 4.5. He literally had just gotten the camera 2 days before. He left this shot in Hong Kong.
Nice.
So
well, it's making me hungry.
Yeah. Yep.
Literally. The one thing, I might, if you're able to organize this at all or shift a little to the right, I'd love for this not to cross through the kind of antlers on this one, but I think the focus is nice and the background's beautiful and the editing is great. And it's just that one little distraction crossing those line boundaries. All right, I'm going to stop my sharing here and jump back into see everybody. We had a number of questions, but the funny thing about the questions was that a lot of them were answered, almost basically all of them, in the last office hours that we did. And if you go to my YouTube channel and look at live events, 2 weeks ago we did an office hour on macro and we demonstrated a lot of stuff, even sort of showed the view through the camera for the Nikon people doing focus stacking internal with the camera. We answered a ton of macro questions. So I think, if you feel like you asked questions about macro and we spent the whole time talking.
Well, and can I just throw in too, that if we talked today, one of the most common questions we've seen both last week and this week were, what macro lens should I buy? What equipment should I have? And I think, if you're a Nikon shooter, a Sony shooter, a Canon shooter, those tried and true 105s, 100s, 90 for the Sony. But the other thing is, we saw people taking great shots with long lenses and phone lenses and, kit lenses. And it's, if you want the real close-up stuff, you want to get a good macro lens. I mean, you want to get the inside of a flower, or you want to get those close-up shots of a wasp's head that will keep you awake at night. You do need to have a decent macro lens. But, this is like so much else. The equipment we have today, it's as much thinking about the shot as it is the equipment that you have.
I had my first good macro lens was actually a really affordable Tamron 90 millimeter macro that went to 1:1. And it had, if you dropped it, it was going to be broken. It didn't have a great build quality, but optically, it's a great lens. I think they make it for the F mount, and I'm sure they make it for Canon and Sony too. And, it's a great manually focusing lens. Now, the only problem with that is, if you really want to do focus stacking and your camera has internal focus stacking capabilities, you're going to need something that your camera can autofocus well. But I think that getting started, if you're just interested in it, you saw a lot of the images that we looked at today that were our favorites were a single frame with a shallow depth of field and a choice about what's in focus to draw the viewer's eye. And I think that's still often the best macro photography.
And I'd say with respect to focus stacking, if you're interested in it and you've got a Z camera, experiment. Experiment in places where you're not trying to create the perfect image of a moment. What you're trying to do is understand how your equipment works. You practice with it so that when you're out there and you're looking at this scene and you go, well, I don't need to do 100 focus stacked images. I just really need to do 10. And this is how it needs to work.
And it's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Macro photography, one of the reasons I don't do a lot of macro photography is because it's difficult. I mean, if you really want to be good at it, it's one of those things you have to focus some time and effort and practice with it. And, if it's something you want to do, play with it.
Yeah. And I would also say on Rick's point about you don't necessarily have to go out and buy the latest and greatest macro lens. I think that most of the mirrorless cameras that we're working with now from Canon, from Sony, from Nikon, the shorter flange distance and the new mounts are letting them build lenses that focus closer. I noticed that every single one of my newer Z lenses focuses a lot closer than the old F mount equivalent. And so, practice with it. See how close you can focus. If your camera, using a rail will let you do focus, really, you could kind of slide in to, focus that camera as close as it gets and then move the camera further and away until you see things get razor sharp that you want in focus and then lock it in there. And you'll get a feel for how close you can focus with the lenses you already have. You might be surprised. The
last thing
option is the tubes, the macro tubes.
I was going to say that's the last thing that I would suggest is if you think you're interested in this, don't think about going out and spending $1,000 on a fancy macro lens. Buy a couple of extension tubes and play with those to see what you get. I mean, you'll be surprised at what that change, what the addition of those tubes does to macro photography for you. We saw a couple of those today.
I remember back when I was learning, I did hang out some with Art Wolf and took some courses from him. And he always said, I never carry a macro lens. I just bring an extension tube for my 70-200 because it's light in my bag. It just lets that lens suddenly do the things I want to do. So,
okay.
All right, everybody. So we're going to talk about portrait photography and some of the differences between, say, headshot studio type portrait photography and environmental portrait photography. And we'll talk about some images from some people who are just better at that than others through the years and look at some portraits from some of us and talk about techniques and talk a little bit about lighting and simple lighting, more complex kinds of lighting. And so come ready for questions with that. We'll have the sign up pretty quick here. Thanks to Darren and Rick and Woody. Thanks to everybody who joined in, and thanks to everybody who submitted images to this gallery because it was impressive. And
it was really great. It was
I had to kind of keep moving quickly. Good. Yeah, otherwise we would have spent 2 hours talking about everybody's photos. And they were great. So everybody gets a huge pat on the back for the submissions that you guys put in. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
So see you in a couple weeks. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Woody.
Take care, everybody.
See you guys later. Bye, guys.